This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. As always, my name is Chris Blades, and if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're always on top of when we're dropping stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you can as well, if you could please give us a 5-star rating and review. It's very helpful. It'll allow us to it'll allow us to see what you guys like, what you guys don't like, allow us to continue to get better. And if you're on social media, we are on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are, we are, so we can communicate in that way as well. And we finally know who will be playing in the Super Bowl. Championship Sunday has passed, the AFC and NFC championship games have gone down, and we now know the end results. And the first game I want to touch on, or the first thing I want to touch on, is the best quarterback in the league playing like it when it mattered most. And in my opinion, that is Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Missed some time this year. Lamar Jackson's going to win the MVP. Russell played well. But for my money, anything on the table, I believe Mahomes is the most talented and the best quarterback in the league. And he showed that again today, I'm recording this Sunday night, so you guys listened to this on Monday, but he showed that again on Sunday as the Chiefs were able to defeat the Titans and go on to the Super Bowl. They'll be taking on the Niners in that game, but in this game, I mean, the Chiefs did their normal. I don't want to say normal thing. This is just the thing they've been doing in the playoffs, like maybe to make the games more entertaining for us at home. I mean, it's been working, so I wouldn't advise them to do this in the Super Bowl, but I mean, it's like I said, it's worked. They've won 2 playoff games, so maybe this is their formula now. But they did their thing where they decide, all right, we're going to spot a team with double-digit lead, and then from there, we'll just work our magic and we'll get back into it. And that's what happened today. The Titans were able to jump out to a 10-0 lead and then a 17-10 lead. They got the ball first, were able to drive down the field, but they stalled in the red zone, which is something they hadn't been doing this season. They hadn't really been doing in the playoffs, and so that definitely hurt. And that was a little eye-opening because I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is a sign of things to come during the game. But yeah, they stalled in the red zone, had to kick a field goal. Then the defense showed up, got the Chiefs to go 3 and out. The Titans got the ball back, drove right down the field and scored. Aided on that drive by a 4th and 2 conversion from the Chiefs 29 to Adam Humphries from Tannehill, which, I mean, I'm all about going for it on 4th down. So, and obviously they're a team that I think they hadn't kicked a field goal before today since like sometime in December, and they obviously hadn't kicked one during the playoffs. So they weren't a team that's like they're not a team that's known for having a good kicker. So I could understand why going for it there made sense, and obviously it worked out. 2 plays later, they were in the end zone. Derrick Henry with a nice direct snap run in. But yes, and they take the 10-0 lead, and then the Chiefs wake up and come right back down the field, score a touchdown. This one was on I mean, after they got down the field, it was a nice misdirection, like the little jet sweep, like touch pass that teams are doing now. Which, I mean, again, if you have a guy like Tyreek Hill who's faster than everybody else on the field, you get him going, you get him started already. No one's going to catch him. So it made sense, and plus he got some nice blocking out there on the edge, so that helped. And I'm like, all right, okay, so 10-7, we're back. The Chiefs are back, and then Titans drive down the field, score another touchdown. You're like, all right, okay, the Titans came to play. They're not just going to lay down. They're not going to fold. They're going to fight. At least that's what you thought at the time. As we will talk about in a second here, that didn't really come to fruition the rest of the game. But, it is what it is. At the moment, it worked out. But, yeah, Titans drove down the field again. Got another touchdown this one. I mean, this was a long drive, too. It was 15 plays, 75 yards, and it took 9 minutes off the clock, which is exactly what we talked about them needing to do. Just keep Mahomes and the Chiefs offense on the sideline as much as you can. And that's what they did. Like I said, 15 plays, 75 yards. Ended with a Dennis Kelly touchdown, which was cool because it was the heaviest guy that's ever scored a touchdown in the playoffs, I believe. And you have a coach in Mike Vrabel who, during his time in the league, was known for being that specialty tight end fullback that would catch touchdowns. I believe all 12 of his receptions in his career have gone for touchdowns. So it was cool seeing that wrinkle built into that offense. And also, I think Dennis Kelly had scored another touchdown earlier this year on a similar kind of play. So that was cool. And then this is when the Chiefs decided they were going to take off on everybody. So after they went up 17-7, the Chiefs went on a 28-0 run, I believe. I mean, it was one of those things where you kind of after you saw them drive down the field, because like I said, the Titans took 9 minutes off the clock. Cool, that's perfect. The Chiefs score in 5 plays, 63. They score in 5 plays and take 2:30 off the clock, and it's just like, all right, well, all that goodness we just did, it was not that it was worth this, but it's just like when you have a team that can score that fast, it doesn't really matter. Like, all right, ideally you want to take time off the clock, keep them off the field. All that stuff's fine and good, but if you have a team that can score in under 3 minutes, almost whenever they want. I mean, not every drive takes that long. I mean, is that short? But whenever they want, they can have a big chunk play to Travis Kelce, big chunk play to Hardman, Sammy Watkins, Hill. It doesn't really matter. And if that's the case, then they can score quickly, so even the time possession thing doesn't really matter, and that's kind of what happened this game. But it was kind of after this when I was like, oh, okay, so the Chiefs are just going to... They scored here in like 5 plays. I was like, oh yeah, no, they're going to score again. And this one was a nice laser. Tyreek Hill got one-on-one coverage, beat it, and then he just faster than, I think that was on Logan Ryan, but faster than him. Mahomes didn't miss him, and that was great. And then the Titans get the ball back there, like, all right, you're going to need to, from here, I was like, the Titans are going to need to match them score for score. And unfortunately, that's not what the Titans did. They punted, and then the Chiefs, Drake take the ball in 9 plays, 86 yards in a minute 40, and score a touchdown. Then you're like, oh, wow, okay, so the Titans played as well as you could play in the first half, and then they're losing at halftime. And it's just like, I mean, that's the Chiefs. That's what happens when you play the Chiefs. They can score so quickly and so easily, it seems like at some times, that no matter how good you play on defense or offense, it might not be enough. And that's kind of where the Titans found themselves in the first half. And then, I mean, they tried in the second half, but it just, like, you kind of knew once. It was kind of like when the Texans, in my opinion, when the Texans fumbled that kickoff last week. I think they were still up 24-14 at the time, but it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, the Texans are going to fold, and the Chiefs are going to take this lead before the half ends, and that's basically what happened. And on the same formula here, it was like once you see them go down the field quick, and then Titans have to punt, you're like, oh yeah, no, the Chiefs are scoring again. And this one was not through the air; this was on Mahomes' legs. And I mean that those were a weapon all night. He was the leading rusher for them, and it's just one of those things where that makes them so hard to beat. Is that you play, all right, you can't play zone because they'll guys like Travis Kelce are good at just finding a soft spot in the zone, as he showed, I think, on an earlier 4th down conversion on their first touchdown drive. Let me double check that, but yeah, I think it was on their first touchdown drive. They had to convert a 4th and 2 when Travis Kelce was able to do that. Just found the soft spot in the zone, so you can't do that because guys like him can find the soft spot in the zone. And then if you play man, Travis Kelce can beat him one-on-one coverage if you don't double team him. Tyreek Hill can beat one-on-one coverage if you don't double team him. You got Sammy Watkins, Hardman, Robinson, all guys that are really fast and can get open and catch the ball when they get open more times than not. So then, even in the instance where you have them all covered up, you did a good job. Then if you drop 7-8 guys in the coverage, if your spy doesn't do the job, then Mahomes can just run it, and that's what he did numerous times throughout this game, and especially on that touchdown there at the end of the half, the 27-yarder, where they looked like they dropped in the coverage, played it right, they flush him out. There's a spy there. The spy misses the tackle, and then you see him go up the field, and you're like, oh, okay, he's just going to go out of bounds, get some yards, and you like see him cut up, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe he won't. Then a couple guys try to come in and strip the ball instead of going for the tackle to stop him. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have scored in a play or two anyway, most likely. But he goes, runs it in, flexes on him, and at that point you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now this game's over. Thanks for coming, thanks for coming, Titans, but it's been fun. It's been real. It has been real. And that's kind of how it went. I mean, after the half, they were able to force the Chiefs to punt on their first drive, but then the Titans themselves had to punt, and then Chiefs go down, and this is when they took a play out of the Titans playbook. They went 13 plays, 73 yards, took 7 minutes off the clock, and scored a touchdown there. I mean, didn't give the Titans the ball back to the end of to the start of the fourth quarter. This one was on a Damian Williams run, and now it's 28-17, and the Titans aren't built to play the way that the Chiefs made them play. Much like how the Titans did to the Ravens last week, where you forced the Ravens to play from behind. Now they can't run the ball as well. They don't have the weapons on the outside to continuously beat you through the air. I mean, Lamar did as best as he could, but it just wasn't enough. And that's basically what the Chiefs did to them. It was like, all right, they spotted you a lead, worked their normal Chiefs Mahomes magic, and got the lead back. And now you're playing from behind against a team whose offense is built to score basically whenever. Ahead, behind, they can do whatever. And the Titans are a team that's a grind and pound, throw the ball when we have to throw the ball kind of thing, do play action stuff. And it's like, play action doesn't work as well when you're losing because no one thinks you're actually going to run the ball. Like, once they were down 11 points, it was like, all right, now you kind of just have to drop straight back and pass. You can still do play action. It works from time to time, but it's not. That's their offense is focused. I mean, I don't say focuses a lot, but it uses a lot of play action, and the play action doesn't work as well when you're down 10 and down double digits because you're not really going to run the ball. Teams know that, so you kind of have to be more of a drop back passer, and that's not what Tannehill. Not that he's incapable of, because he had a great season, but that's just not what he is normally, and that's not what he was today, and it showed. And I give the Chiefs and Frank Clark some credit because he had some comments earlier in the week about being able to stop Derrick Henry, and in the first half it looked like he was just going to fall victim, just like every other team had done recently at least. But obviously once they stopped him a little bit in the second half, and then obviously once they got up, they kind of had to go away from the run, and that's when the Chiefs were able to feast. And then also you got the game-sealing sack. So on a nice like fake spin back. It was a very nice move out there on the edge. All in Luan, I believe, Michigan on Michigan crime. So that was funny. But yeah, so he got the game-sealing sack. He was talking spicy in his post-game rant, which, I mean, he deserved to do. You talk and you back it up. I'm all for you saying whatever you want to say on the field. I mean, I wasn't mad when Richard Sherman did it to Michael Crabtree all those years ago. I'm not mad when anybody does it. When you say something before the game and back it up in the game, then whatever comes after that comes after that. You are more than welcome to say however you feel, especially right after the game when you're emotional. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs scored another touchdown in the fourth. This one was the deep one to Sammy Watkins where the defender fell down and Mahomes just. I mean, if there's a guy open somewhere, Mahomes usually doesn't miss him, and then especially if it's deep, he's not going to miss him very often. And Sammy Watkins is too fast and just outran everybody. And the Chiefs scored. Not the Chiefs. The Titans scored there late to cut it to 11, but I mean it was almost a little too late. They got the ball back, but they weren't able to do much. They ended up they turned it over on downs, as I said, with the Frank Clark sack. So, great game for the Chiefs, great game for Mahomes, and it's just and I mean this is obviously I thought the Chiefs were going to win, but this is what you want. You want to see the best teams and the best players in the Super Bowl. And no offense to the Titans, everything they've done this year. But on the biggest stages, you want to see, like I said, you want to see the best players. And Mahomes in the Super Bowl with that offense is prime and football is prime sports entertainment, in my opinion. So he was great. 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 for 53 on the ground, and added another touchdown. I didn't really even need Travis Kelce that much. He only had 3 receptions for 30 yards, but Sammy Watkins did his thing, 7 for 114 and touchdown. Obviously, the 60-yarder helped. Tyreek Hill, 5 for 67 and 2 touchdowns. And then, as I said, Tannehill got over the 100 yards this game, I mean, maybe that wasn't a good thing because they lost, but threw for 209 and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry only had 69 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. Far cry from what he normally has. And yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl for the first time in, I think, what they said, 50 years? Yeah, I think it was 50 years. So great for them, great for the team, great for the organization, great for Mahomes, great for Andy. It was a cool moment for all those guys, especially for Andy, just because he hasn't been back to the Super Bowl since 2004 when he was with the Eagles and then lost to the Patriots. So, and he's always been regarded as one of the best coaches in the league. So at least let him get another shot. I mean, obviously we'll see what happens in 2 weeks, but it's nice for him to at least be able to get another shot at it. So that was great. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how what they were able to come up with and scheme up and concoct over these 2 weeks off and how Mahomes and Andy perform in that game. But yeah, this was what we thought and what most football fans wanted. Unless you're a Titans fan. If you're a Titans fan, I'm sorry, but the Chiefs is like I said, it's prime entertainment. It's a new era of football. We're watching potentially the best quarterback in the league, and you want to see him on the biggest stage to see how he handles it. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, we got that, and then coming up after the break, we will talk about what happened in the NFC Championship game. Another unsurprising result, in my opinion, but if you're a fan of one team, you're definitely having trouble sleeping tonight just because of the effort or the performance. Not, I don't want to say the effort, don't question effort, but the performance your team put out there. So we'll talk about that right after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Network. So the NFC Championship game, the late game, went down as well. Niners, Packers, and unfortunately for Packers players, coaches, front office, fans, it felt like a bit of a case of deja vu. And by that I mean it was a little bit closer technically in score than the first matchup between these two teams, but the game itself did not feel too different. The Niners, start to finish, were dominant. Their running game was dominant. Jimmy G basically just had to show up and hand the ball off in this game, and they still were able to win. It's pretty fun. We'll get to that in a second, but yeah. The Niners defense, and that's the one thing, and that's why it was important for them to win that last game of the season against the Seahawks, because who knows how this goes. If they're the 5 seed and have to go to, they probably would have beaten the Eagles just because of the fact the Eagles were so beat up. But instead of playing 2 home games to chance the Super Bowl, they went to play potentially 3 road games, and that is a much more daunting task, especially for a team that was beat up a little bit towards the end of the season, was able to use that bye week to get guys like Quan Alexander and Dee Ford and other guys back and healthy. So you can see how much you can. They're a good example. Let me say they're a good example of why getting the bye is so important, because that home field advantage with that front four and that pass defense. It was the perfect mix. It really was. I mean, their defense was dominant the 2 games in the playoffs against the Vikings and then against the Packers here tonight. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has, like, if you look at it objectively, like just the numbers, he had a good day. 31 for 39, 326, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And I think he only lost 1 fumble. But if you watch the game, it's like the numbers sometimes can lie to you, and that's why you can't just base everything on numbers. Numbers sometimes can lie, because even those times where he was getting, even some of those completions he had, they were completions, they were short completions, they were for losses, they were the situation where he was completing the ball, or completing the pass, but like it wasn't getting first downs, it wasn't getting big yardage, so the completion percentage is high, like the pass rating, all that stuff is high, like he had the 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, but at the same time, it was like if you didn't think he played that well, and if you asked him, I imagine he probably didn't think he played that well. But I knew the Packers were probably in trouble when their first possession of the game, they get the ball down, they have a 4th and 1 from the 50, and they decide to punt. Now, I mean, that's not uncommon for teams to punt on 4th down, like that's nothing. But when you have a team that you know, when you're going up against a team with a good defense, whenever you get good field position, you got to take advantage of it. So to be able to get to the 50, have a 4th and 1 on your first drive is where I think that would be a good opportunity to at least to show and inspire confidence in your team to believe that, hey, I believe in you guys can do this, and get that yard, and then maybe you still end up having to punt, whatever, but just instilling that confidence into your team maybe would have played a bigger factor, because again, you punted the ball, and then it didn't matter because they drove right down the field and scored in 6 plays, less than 4 minutes. So it was like, all right, if you're going to play the field position game, it didn't matter. All it did was just allow the Niners to take a little bit longer to score the touchdown. But I mean, again, it took them 3.5 minutes. So really, did it really make a difference? In my opinion, not really. But I think that would have been a good opportunity for. And I mean, it's Matt LaFleur's first round in the playoffs. He's a rookie head coach, so honestly, not all rookie head coaches come in that big and that bold in order to make those kind of decisions. But you see, generally when you see teams coach to win as opposed to coaching not to lose, they benefit you in times. And that kind of decision is coaching not to lose. You're like, all right, it's first possession, we had a decent drive, we'll just punt the ball. But I'm like, it's 4th and 1 at the 50-yard line. Like, all right, if they go down and score, you knew you were going to need to score more than 7 points anyway. So it's not like it's that big of a deal. And I said the boost you can get from getting those 4th down conversions can be big for the team, especially on a team where you knew how much you struggled against them that first time, especially scoring the ball. They only scored 8 points. So you want to be able to instill some of that confidence in your team early, I would imagine. Obviously, I'm not a head coach, but I would imagine you want to instill some of that confidence in these guys, like, hey, this game's going to be different. And it really wasn't. And then, like, from there, it kind of was all downhill. Like I said, the Niners go down the field, first possession, score, 36-yard touchdown from Raheem Mostert. Green Bay gets the ball back, 5 plays, punt. Niners drive the ball. I mean, this was like a guy kind of... No, it was a good punt return. That's what it was. Got a 26-yard punt return. Got out to like the 50. Titans drive... not the Titans, wow. The Niners drive down a little bit. Have to kick a field goal. They were aided by a roughing the passer call on that drive, so that obviously helps you get some free yards. Kick a field goal. Green Bay gets the ball back again. Has to punt. After a sack fumble that the Packers were able to recover, but obviously it didn't really help them. Niners go down the field. Score again, another Mostert touchdown. I mean, he was great, but that offensive line and those play calls were just, I mean, it seemed like whatever the Niners wanted to do, running the ball, they were able to do. I mean, Shanahan, for as much flack as he gets, and he does deserve some of it for the performance of the Falcons in the Super Bowl and helping to blow that 28-3 lead to the Patriots. He's what he was able to do even before this year, where he was having Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard and guys like that over the last couple of years look good in spurts at the quarterback position. And a lot of that comes down to him as an offensive mind, as a play caller, and as a schemer, just being able to design plays to get. It just seems like whenever the Niners today wanted to get outside, they could get outside. If it didn't matter if it was toss, jet sweep, reverses. It seemed like they could do whatever they wanted out there. I mean, to the point where Jimmy G threw the ball 8 times. Not in the first quarter, not in the first half. 8 times in the entire game. This is the NFC Championship game, mind you. He threw the ball 8 times. And in all honesty, I kind of understood it. When I was watching it, I was like, alright, the Packers can't stop the run. I mean, we knew that going in, that they struggled against the run. But like in this game specifically, they could not stop the run. Mosa was doing basically whatever he wanted. He was, I think, on at least a couple of his touchdowns, he wasn't even touched while he was running. Just the blocking was perfect. I remember the one, I think it was his second one, but one of his touchdowns, like they ran Deebo Samuel on like a jet sweep, and then like they faked it and they handed it off to Moser, and then they had him they had Deebo Samuel lead block for him. Like it was like some of the, like I said, some of the play calls Shanahan put together. Chef's kiss. They were beautiful. But so yeah, like he was just like every time he got the ball, it seemed like he was getting 5-10 yards a pop. I mean, what did he finish with? He finished with 29 for 220, 29 carries, 220 yards at 7.6 average, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, Debo had 2 for 43. Even Coleman at 6 for 20 before he got hurt, which is, I mean, is it a big loss? Not really, because they used the rotation. So, and obviously Moser just put up 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, do you need Tevin Coleman? No, but obviously he was a big part of their offense. He was a big part of the reason why they won the last game. So it'd be interesting to see. But as we talked about before on the last episode, you really don't know whose days it's going to be. Whether it's because of injury, because of the hot hand, whatever. Like for all we know, Matt Breida could be the guy in the Super Bowl. And would it shock me at all? No. And it shouldn't shock you either, because that's just kind of how the Niners roll. They're just like, hey, whoever's going good that game, here, you can have the ball. So we'll see how bad the injury is, and they didn't really say much. They had to bring a card out for him, so that's never really a good sign in terms of shoulder injury. So I'd imagine he's probably out for the Super Bowl, but you never know. All the newfangled medical science that they have now, they'll find a way potentially to get him back out there for 2 weeks, but you never know. But yeah, like Moser was great, and like I was saying, Jimmy D threw the ball 8 times, and it was like he really didn't need to throw the ball any more than that. Like I said, they couldn't stop the run. They finished as a team with 42 rushes for 285 yards and 4 touchdowns. So it's like if you run for almost 300 yards as an NFL offense, like why pass? Like why even, like you don't need to pass, especially when your defense was playing so well. It was like we're not even, like why even waste our time, luck them into a fluke interception or like a sack fumble or something. It didn't even seem worth their time, which is funny. And quick aside, but that's why I believe some of these quarterback win stats are a little bit dumb. I know he talked about his record going into the game, I think, including the playoffs going, and he was, 21-5 as a starter. And I'm like, yes. So when he plays, his team wins. That's great. But in these last 2 games in the playoffs, he's thrown the ball 27 times. Total, I believe. I think he threw 19 against the Vikings and 8 today, so it should be 27. And that math checks out. So it's not like they're winning because of him. And not that he's doing anything bad to hurt the team, other than he threw the one pick that could have hurt the team. But again, the defense stepped up, so it didn't really matter. But that's why I'm like, quarterback wins are a weird stat when there's so much else involved, especially in a team, especially in a sport like football. Because as people have talked about with like more of the analytical stuff and all that thing in baseball, like win-loss record for pitchers is not really how they judge them. And judge them by ERA, WAR, like opponent batting percentage, like opponent batting average, different strikeouts, like different other things that you can't affect. Like Jacob deGrom's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball the last couple years, and his win-loss record is terrible because the Mets are just bad whenever he pitches. I mean, the Mets have been mediocre in general, but then for whatever reason, whenever he pitches, they could just never get any run support for him. And I'm like, so he could go 7 innings, 8 innings, give up 1 run, but they lose 2-1 or 1-0 or something. And I'm just like, his win-loss record is effective for that, but no one holds that against him, as he's won, I believe, back-to-back Cy Youngs. But yeah, it's just like in that scenario, it's like the win-loss, when there's more than it's not tennis, it's not golf where it's just you out there. It's not even like basketball really, where one guy can kind of dominate the floor and he can be that much of a difference maker to get you a win or be the reason why you lose. Like baseball, football, those are sports where like there's so much else that goes in. I mean, Jimmy G only plays one side of the ball, so in order for him to win, his also team needs to not give up a lot of points. So that was just a quick aside. That's why I think quarterback wins are a dumb stat, in my personal opinion. Other people don't. Other people view it as the be-all, end-all, like you play to win the game. I 100% agree. If you're keeping score, then the win-loss matters. But at the same time, it's like these last 2 games are not. The Niners aren't going to the Super Bowl because of Jimmy G. They're going to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G as the quarterback, but they're not going to the Super Bowl because of him. But yeah, so Niners dominated. I mean, the Packers scored a couple times in the second half just to get the game and make the final score look a little bit closer, but it was really never in doubt. I mean, the Niners were up 27-0 at halftime, and by the second possession, they were up 34-7. So it was just like, all right, as long as the Niners don't have a massive implosion and major collapse, they were going to get to the Super Bowl, and they did. Probably the biggest play of the game, in my own personal opinion, was the fumbled snap that Aaron Rodgers had on 2nd and 5 from the San Francisco 25 on when it was 17-0. So they were moving the ball, had a chance to maybe cut it to 17-3, 17-7. Get the game back within a game, maybe have to force Jimmy G to pass the ball a little bit. And then they fumbled it. He drops the snap. I don't know whose fault it was, whatever. But they fumbled. The 49ers recovered, and that was really all she wrote. More for my money, it's basically all she wrote. I mean, also the pick before half was pretty bad too, that Rodgers had. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Niners were the better team. They were a better team going into the game. They were a better team after the game. I mean, matchups matter, and especially sports like football, matchups matter a lot. And the Niners were a bad matchup for the Packers, and you can see why when you see the end result of both games that these two teams played this season. So it'd be interesting to see. We'll talk a little bit later in the show about what I think is next for the Packers, because we talked. Well, I had a topic in an episode earlier in the playoffs about how this might be Aaron Rodgers' best shot to get to a Super Bowl, and obviously they didn't. And I'm just like, all right, where do they go from here? And especially when you see Aaron Rodgers dip in his play a little bit this year. Like, is this? Like I said, we'll talk about that later. But it'll be interesting to see where the Packers go from this point, because this might be the peak. I mean, you don't go 13-3 very often, get the 2 seed, and get the NFC Championship game very often. So you got to take these chances when you can get them. And obviously, the Packers were not able to capitalize on that. So yeah, Super Bowl set. Niners Chiefs, probably between the Chiefs and between the Niners and the Saints, the best team in the NFC, and between the Chiefs and the Ravens, the best team in the AFC. So great matchup. Should be a fun game. Offense versus defense. Those are always good style clashes in the big games like this. So should be a fun one. We'll talk about it a lot between now and the Super Bowl, and then obviously we'll be able to watch the Super Bowl, and like I said, it should be an entertaining one. Nice to be able to see Mahomes on that big stage. He showed up in the playoffs so far this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up and showed out again. Though that, like I said, that Niners defense is very stout, so it'll be interesting how it travels from California down to South Beach. But yeah, we will talk about them more as the days go on. So after this next break, we're going to switch gears, switch over to basketball, and talk about a team that I believe is ready to take off. And I'll tell you who that team is right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So that team that I believe is ready to take flight, if you will, is none other than the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, you may be saying, Chris, what are you talking about? They're the 12 seed. They're 16-27 on the year. Like, how are they ready to take flight? Like, they're not that good of a team. Blah blah blah. And to all that, okay, you may be right. But if you have not been paying attention to the Pelicans, at least over the last stretch of games here, the last couple weeks, they are 9-4 in their last 13 games. And in those 13 games, they have wins over the Jazz in overtime, which, as the NBA ruled later, should not have gone to overtime. That foul on Jackson Hayes against Gobert should not have been called. And they honestly could have lost that game. That would have been a disaster. They ended up losing that game if Gobert makes both free throws, but he didn't. So they'd be in the Jazz. They took the Pelicans down to the wire. They'd beaten the Blazers, they'd beaten the Pacers, they'd beaten the Rockets, they'd beaten the Nuggets in that stretch. I mean, they've beaten some other teams too, and they lost to the Lakers, lost to the Jazz once before, lost to the Celtics. And that stretch really, which is their worst loss. And that time they lost by 35, and then lost to the Clippers. But even in that Clippers game, like the Clippers, that's a game they arguably could have won. I mean, they were up 8 going into the fourth quarter. And they kind of just like faltered. They weren't able. They got outscored 31-20 in that quarter, I believe. And even down at the end, they just had some simple lapses that kind of hurt them. Towards the end, they were able to cut the lead down to 3, and then they weren't able to they weren't able to box out and grab a rebound. Pat Bev grabbed a rebound, and then that led to the Lou Will dagger 3 that kind of officially put them up for good. I mean, they hit a 3 to get it back in, but after they were able to force a miss, JJ couldn't hit another 3 to send it to overtime. So that's a game you could argue they could have won. Like I said, they beat the Jazz, and in that game, Brandon Ingram had 49 points, and that snapped the Jazz's 10-game winning streak. So they were coming in hot. It's not that you got a team that was reeling. They were coming in playing against a good team, a team that's, after some early season struggles, has really done well for themselves the last couple weeks, month or so. Got themselves right back in the thick of things in the West. And on top of all that, they get Zion back this week. And we don't know where he'll be at athletically. We don't know how he will be like condition-wise with the stamina and stuff. We also don't know like with them having to teach him how to walk again, how the knee will hold up, all that stuff. So health-wise, that's definitely a question mark, and I could understand that. But if Zion is anything close to what he looked like in the preseason and in Summer League, that is a massive boost to this team. Because obviously when you projected this team over the summer, or when people projected this team over summer, and then we were talking about this team going into the year, it was believed that Zion was going to be there, obviously. He had injuries in college, so you can't just assume a clean bill of health throughout the season. So I understand that. But if you can add a guy that can give you an extra 15 and 20 points a game, plus 7-8 rebounds, a couple assists, and a couple blocks a game, if his knees are fine. I mean, he's looked good in the little clips they've been posting on Twitter with obviously it's light pregame stuff, and then but the knee looks good on the dunks and on the way he's moving around the court, all that fun stuff. So I'm saying, if you can add that kind of guy back into this team, I mean, that just might be the jolt of energy they need. I mean, they were down bad before, but they're now up to 12th. I mean, it's funny to say up to 12th, but they are up to 12th in the West standings. And I believe, I just want to double check for you guys. But they're 12th in the West, but they're only 4.5 back of the 8 seed Grizzlies, which, I mean, that's another surprise team for sure. But they're only 4.5 games back from the Grizzlies. So I mean, there's a lot of, they got a whole half of a season to make all that, to make up 4.5 games. Because I mean, it seems like the first 7 teams are pretty much locked in. Because they're 8 games back of the 7 seed OKC Thunder, so that's probably not going to happen. And even the Thunder are 3 games back of the 6 seed. So it seems, barring an OKC collapse, the first 7 teams are more or less locked in. I mean, you never know with injuries and stuff, trades or whatever. Can shift up and down, but it looks like the fight is going to be for that 8 seed. And right now ahead of them, you got Portland, who's been struggling. You got the Suns, who are actually a little bit better than I thought they were, but again, not that great of a team. You got the Spurs, who are hit or miss, and we'll see what happens if they trade Aldridge or they trade DeRozan, somebody like that. How much their team may go up and down. And then obviously, like I said, you have the Grizzlies. So you have a team that's been playing very well recently. Obviously, they lost last one, but they're, like I said, 9-4 in their last 13 games, and 6-4 over their last 10. The only other team down below better than that in that stretch is the Grizzlies, who are 8-2 during that time. And then coming up soon on their schedule, they have. I know they play the Nuggets. They play. So they play the Grizzlies. They play the Grizzlies on Monday, which, I mean, that'll be. They play the Grizzlies I think twice in the next 6. Which those will be big games just to hopefully gain some ground on them. So they play the Grizzlies twice. They play the Spurs. They play the Nuggets, who they've already beaten twice this year, which is wild, because even when they were doing badly, they could just find a way to beat the Nuggets. And obviously, again, they have Zion now, so we'll see how that goes. Well, they have Zion starting Wednesday against the Spurs. Then they play the Celtics. Then they play the Cavs, and those are their next 6 games. So those are all very winnable games. The Celtics, based on the last result, may not be as winnable, but all the rest of those games are all winnable games. And like I said, the jolt of getting Zion back on the team and into the lineup could be enough. And then just assuming, again, it's not fair to assume, but Brandon Ingram, with Zion in there, should honestly make things easier for him, because now teams, he's been their one main constant on the offensive side of things throughout the entire season. He's having an all-star caliber year, averaging 25, 6, and 4, shooting almost 50, 40, 90. Yeah, well, no, I guess not almost. He's shooting almost 50, 40, 90. He's at 47.8% from the field, 40% from 3, and 85.5 from the free throw line. So he's been great this year. Drew Hodge's been great, obviously. But yeah, I'm just saying, adding another scoring option could help make things easier on those guys. Obviously, you're taking touches away and taking shots away from those guys, so we'll have to see how they integrate him into the offense. But I'd imagine having a guy as talented as Zion and that would draw the attention of a Zion, in theory at least, could make things easier. And then, like I'm saying, like they have a lot of time to make up ground for that 8th seed. And then they're right back into where most people thought they could potentially be. I mean, many people thought this was a team that could be competing for a playoff spot. And they haven't so far this season, but they also have been without what could have been their best player. I mean, Ingram's been their best player by a wide margin this year. But what many people thought was going to be their best player coming to the year in Zion. So if they get him back, as long as the chemistry's still good, the offense is still good. I mean, obviously he's going to help out on defense with his jumping abilities and ability to block shots, as again was evidenced in the preseason and in summer league. Though, I mean, that's not the real thing. So it's definitely going to be a jump, and you don't want to just put everything on Zion's shoulders, be like, "Hey, Zion, you're back. Go carry the team now." Like, no. But I mean, this is a team that's been playing extremely well over the last few weeks. And they're also getting their best player back, in theory. Or they're highly regarded player. Let me not say the best, but one of the most highly regarded player on their team. So why would you not? So why would it be surprised if all of a sudden you see if in a month we see the Pelicans are now firmly in the 8th seed? Would that be surprising? It shouldn't be. Like, it may be surprising based on where they were a month ago, but the way they've been playing now recently. If Zion is who everybody thinks he is, then, I mean, the Pelicans may be able to do a little something. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying they're going to upset the Lakers in a first-round series or anything like that if they were able to make the playoffs, but I would peg them as a much tougher out, at least personally, if they were able to add Zion, because, again, that's another 15-plus points a game, another 8 rebounds a game, and a couple blocks a game that they weren't getting right now. And then obviously he helps. So then he helps the offense, and he also helps that defense because they're giving up 118 points a game right now, and that's not good enough. You're not going to be able to beat very many teams giving up 117 points. I think, what are they? Yeah, they're the only team worse than them in terms of points per game given up is no one. They're the worst. I thought the Hawks were worse than them, but no, the Hawks give up 117.4 and they give up 117.7. So I'm saying, yeah, they have the worst. They have one of, if not the worst, defense in the league, and I think adding Zion back in will at least very well help that. I don't know how much he's going to do on offense. Don't know how much he worked on that shot or whatever. So that'll help. But just his presence on the floor and his ability to get up, dunk, get up on those alley-oops, get going on the fast break. That enough should be able to help out the team. So. From that regard, I think the Pelicans are a team that, again, you never know because you still got to play the games and we don't know what Zion is going to look like. But if in a month we saw that they were competing they were firmly in contention for that 8th seed, would not surprise me at all. Would not surprise me one bit, especially if Brandon Ingram keeps it up. I mean, he scored 49 points the other day, and the man's, 21, 22 years old, something like that? He's been averaging 25.5 points a game this year. So, I mean, he's been sensational. He's firmly in the lead, in my opinion, for most improved. I'm firmly in that lead, and I just think I don't see how getting Zion back hurts the team. Like I said, it could be wrong. We'll see how it goes, but I don't see how getting Zion back would hurt the team. But we will see how that goes. So, on the flip side of things, there's another team also in the West who is trending in the opposite direction. And we will talk about them right after this break. You may know who it is, but if you don't, give us some time to think about it, and we'll talk about who it is right after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, which is presented by GSMC Podcast. So that team that I'm talking about that is unfortunately heading in the wrong direction is the Houston Rockets. The Rockets are currently they've fallen down to the 6th seed in the West. Not necessarily ideal, in my own personal opinion. And they are on a 3-game losing streak. Lost to the Lakers on Saturday without Anthony Davis, so not a great loss, especially in a game where they were up double digits early in that game. And also, Russ had a great game, had 35 points. They still weren't able to win. They lost by 9. They lost to the Blazers before that, the team who, as we mentioned, is not necessarily having the greatest of years, but lost that game. Lost to the Grizzlies, who are 8-2 in their last 10, so not as disappointing as it would be earlier in the season. But again, it's a young team. It's not a team you're expected to be losing to, at least not at this stage. And then they also lost to the Thunder recently. So they're 2-4 in their last 6 games. And the biggest issue over these last 6 games is the fact that James Harden is struggling, at least from the field. In his last, well, we're gonna run through their last 6 games. So against the Lakers, start with the Lakers, and we'll work our way up. So against the Lakers, he was 8 of 20. 2 of 9 from 3, and he had 34 points by game when he shot 18 free throws, made 16 of them. But again, you shoot 40% from the field and 2 of 9 from 3. Like, what's that, like 22%? Yeah, 22% from 3. I mean, that's not going to get the job done. We know he's a volume shooter, volume scorer, but that's not good enough. So that was a loss against the Blazers. A loss earlier this week. He was 3 of 12, only shot to the ball 12 times, which is unlike him. Only had 13 points, 1 of 6 from 3. So again, not great. In their loss to the Grizzlies, he was 13 of 37, which is yikes. Russ didn't play this game, so that's part of the reason why he took all those shots. But still, 37 shots is not great, especially when you only shoot 13 to 37, which is, for the people at home, 35%, and was, 5 of 19, 5 of 19 from 3, which is 26%. So, again, shooting percentage is not great. Shooting percentage is not everything, but when you shoot the ball 37 times and you score 41 points, you would hope you're a little bit better from the field than that. And he wasn't, and that's a game that they lost. And then also, even in their wins, he's not really shooting the ball that well, which is the crazy part. I mean, they beat the Wolves by 30 in that same stretch, but he shot 8 for 17, so that's definitely better. 6 of 11 from 3, which is definitely an improvement from where he had been in the losses. But then in the other loss, he shot 5 of 17 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. And this was against the Thunder. Yeah, it was against the Thunder where they got blown out on Russ's welcome back party. And he played well, but James did not. 5 of 17, like I said, 2 of 9 from 3. Only had 17 points. That's not going to get it done. Then even in their win against the Hawks, which they won by 7, and he had a 40-point triple-double. He shot 9 of 34 from the field. Had 23 free throws, 9 of 13, but 9 of 34 from the field and 4 of 20 from 3. I mean, that's a disaster. I don't care, even if you had 41 points, that's a disaster. So, that's how he's played in that recent stretch. And I mean, obviously, he's a great shooter, great scorer, so he'll get out of it, but that stretch has kind of highlighted some of their issues, which is that their defense, not great. I mean, the lowest total they gave up in that stretch was 109, which is, again, not ideal. You want to have a defense be a little bit better than that, especially. I mean, it's Mike D'Antoni, it's the Rockets. They're not known for their defense, but again, when you're getting shootouts with the Hawks and letting letting the Blazers drop almost 120 on you, letting the Lakers drop 125 on you without 124 without Anthony Davis. You let Kuzma get 23, Danny Green get 20, KCP get 20. Like that's not ideal. And I think for the season, what are they at? They're at like 114. They give up a game, which again, not great. Yeah, that 114, and I mean the teams below them in terms of that are all teams that aren't in the playoffs. Like no other playoff team no other playoff team currently gives up that much points. Well, I'll take that back. The only team that gives that many points is the Grizzlies, and again they're playing better, but they're still under 500 right now. So they're the only team currently in the playoffs. And a part of that is, I mean, they're a team that is built and playing like a team that's already won rings and just kind of like takes nights off here and there on the defensive end. But they haven't won anything yet, and that's kind of the problem. Like you saw over the last couple of years, like with Golden State or like even those Cleveland teams, where they would just have nights where they weren't really trying as hard on defense because they knew, all right, it's game 36 of 82. We're playing in Charlotte on a random night. Like, that doesn't really matter. And I mean, that's something you can get away with when you're a champion. Because you can just turn it on in the fourth quarter, kind of like how the Clippers did against the Pelicans on Saturday. I mean, they haven't won yet either, but they were just able to, when they want to, they can turn on the defense, and then boom, they can win a game pretty easily. The Rockets don't have the luxury because they don't have the kind of defensive players that they used to, and then even like their big guys aren't that good. They don't have really a reliable big outside of Clint Capella. I know they have Tyson Chandler, who they tried to use, but it doesn't really work. They got Hardenson, I believe, who's a young guy who they don't really have a whole lot of faith in as of this moment. That doesn't mean he won't grow into it, but they don't have a lot of faith in him at right now. And then outside of that, I mean, their biggest issue really is the fact that no one's really shooting that well from three. Like Harden shooting 37%, which is fine. Russ is shooting 23%, not great. Eric Gordon, who's been in and out of the lineup this year, has only played 17 games, is shooting 33%. Ben McLemore is actually one of their better shooters at 37%. House has been up and down. He's shooting 36%, and then PJ Tucker's shooting 37%. But the issue with PJ Tucker is that he's normally their small ball 5, and I'm like, when your small ball 5 is consistently, not consistently, but when he's below, he's like 6'6", maybe 6'5", not even 6'6", he's 6'5". You can't. I mean, he's been great at that small ball 5 for them over the last couple of years, but that's not. Who can you defend? Naming the Lakers, just when they went small, they're like, all right, we'll take out Dwight or McGee or whoever, just put in KCP or put in another guard and just attack the rim and have LeBron get downhill because there's no one they have at the rim to protect. And that's the thing, and I think that's what it's starting to get to, is their lack of size or reliable size is starting to hurt them. And then just like I said, when Ben McLemore's been one of their more consistent 3-point shooters this year, that's going to be a problem. I mean, take PJ Tucker, for example. I said he's shooting 37% for the year, but over his last 10 games, he's shooting 16% from 3. And I mean, that's what he's mainly there to do, is to hit corner threes. And if he's not doing that, then what good is he? Because obviously he's still very useful, but like why? Like he serves less of a purpose. Let me just say that. There's whole things that he's a smaller guy, but he's feisty, he can get rebounds, can defend, can hit corner threes. If the defense isn't that good, and he's still not going to grow because he's still only 6'5", and he's not hitting threes, your team's going to struggle. So he's, like I said, he's having his issues. Russ has been playing better. He's had I think it was like 16 straight games of 20 points. He has a bunch of 30-point games recently, so he's playing well, and that's fun. But they aren't really translating to wins, so that hurts him. And especially when you have, I mean, even though OKC is not doing better than the Rockets, though they play them on Monday, we'll see how that goes. Just like the whole, was Russ really a good fit? Like, you see what OKC is doing with, in theory, inferior talent on their end, and the way that their offense is flowing, the way they're good in clutch moments, the way they're good late in games, the way their 3-guard lineup their small ball lineup is able to configure together with 3-point guards with Chris Paul, Shea, Gilgeous Alexander, and then Dennis Schroeder. It's just like, oh, was the trade really worth it? Blah blah blah. And I mean, I think it was for the Rockets just because like they have a higher peak now, they have a higher ceiling in the playoffs just because Russ is he has a higher potential as a scorer and as a player than Chris Paul does at this moment. But like on a game-to-game basis, Chris Paul is more reliable right now, mainly because the shot. Like I said, Russ shooting 23% from three this year. I mean, that's not in the playoffs. That's gonna be an issue. It's gonna be a big problem. So like I said, they're kind of in a funk right now, and it's just the issue that there's really no where to go for them. I mean, they got a lot of big guys. They got a lot of big contracts signed in the next couple of years. Their trade options are really kind of limited because the guys that are tradable can't really go to the Rockets. They trade all their picks to the Thunder, and they don't really have that many attractable pieces. No, they don't have that many attractive pieces. I think who's the best guy they could trade? Like Capella, maybe? And I'm like, unless you're getting a better center back, like now you're starting Tyson Chandler, that's a disaster. No offense to Tyson Chandler, but he's just not a full-time starting center at this moment. Would you trade Eric Gordon, who's been injured on and off this year, so he's not going to net you that much. And then even then you don't really have a good six-man anymore. You trade PJ Tucker, then you basically have no good defenders on the wings. So just like, where do they go? And like, what do they do other than hope that James Harden just goes back into Super Saiyan mode and just dominates again? Which, I mean, he's capable of doing, but it just seems like right now he realizes that that's not like how reliable and how sustainable is that. That's what he's done the last couple of regular seasons. He's been amazing. When Chris Paul got hurt last year, he was doing it all. Was arguably the best player in the league. Didn't win MVP, but could have. And then you get to the playoffs, and then it's just like they just fizzle out. So it's like, if I'm him, I could understand why I was like, why am I going to go all out for a team that isn't really that good in the regular season, like for what? And again, I mean, I don't imagine he's trying to miss shots on purpose. That would be foolish. But obviously he's not shooting well, so that's also not helping. So I'm saying if he's not hitting shots and he's still shooting 20 to 30 times a game and he's hitting under 35% of them, it's like, how much good is that really doing the team? I mean, are those shots better than if you gave them to Austin Rivers or to Daniel House? Yeah, but I'm saying this is not a sustainable way to run a team, run an offense. And I think that's kind of where the Rockets are at. It's like, where do you go? Like, what do you do? Like, do you fire Mike D'Antoni? Like, probably not, but then it's like, again, how high is their ceiling once you get to the playoffs? Do you make a trade? I'm sure they want to. I'm sure they would love to have a guy like Iggy or something like that, even though we don't really know what shape Iggy would be in right now. He hasn't really played this year, though. I mean, I think, isn't he? He's still on the Grizzlies, I believe. So I'm like, maybe he'll come back because the Grizzlies are actually like a decent team now. Well, who knows? They're still trying to trade for him, and I imagine there's other teams trying to trade for him that might have better pieces to trade. So it's like, this is the kind of the team I'm going to be stuck with, at least for stuck is the wrong word, but the team they're going to have through this season. So it's like, where do you improve other than just hoping James Harden starts scoring 40 points a night again? Which isn't impossible, but also doesn't seem that sustainable. Your plan going into a game is to be like, please, James, score 40 points, and just hope for the best from there. Like, that's not a sustainable way to run a team. Run a team. You can't just rely on that, especially when you don't play that much defense. And I said they give up 114 points a game. Like, that's not new for them, but usually their defense was a little bit better. Now it's just bad because they have a bunch of older guys that are getting major minutes and that either were good defenders and aren't anymore, or were never really good defenders and now they're older. So it's just like, all right, you just don't have the energy or just don't have the legs in you to be consistently good on defense night in and night out. And then for the guys that require that, like the PJ Tuckers, now that's hurting their offense because now they can't hit their threes anymore. So the Rockets are in a bit of a funk. They're in a bad ways. I mean, obviously, they're still going to make the playoffs, and once you make the playoffs, anything's possible. If you just have James Harden get hot or Russ get hot for a couple weeks, like, anything's possible. I'm just saying right now they're in a bit of a rut, and it's just like, it's not enough to where they're going to drop out of the playoffs, but like there's not really many ways they can improve the team as currently constructed. So it's just like I wonder where they're going to go from here and what they're going to end up doing. Because if they lose on Monday to the Thunder again, or let me see who else do they play. In the next few games they play the Nuggets. The Wolves aren't that bad, but then the Wolves should be an easy one. But then play the Nuggets again, play the Jazz again. I mean, not again, but they play the Jazz, they play the Blazers, who they lost to, then play the Mavs again. So there's a realistic chance that outside of the Wolves, they could lose at least 4 of their next 7 games. So now we're talking about what, like a 4 of their next 7 after going 2-4. So that's what 6 and 11, like 5 and 10 of their last 15, 6. Like it's just like it'd be a rough slide. Let me just put it that way. It would be rough. And I'm just like, obviously, if you're a player, if you're a coach, you're a fan of the Rockets, that's not what you want. But it's like it's something that if you're watching your team play over the last few weeks, it seems something that may be inevitable. And this slide may not have an end in sight. But we'll see. They have a chance on Monday to get it right. They play the Thunder at home, so that should be a get right game for them. But again, they lost to the Lakers with no AD in Houston, so you never know. But yeah, let's see how we'll keep our eyes on the Pelicans and the Rockets and the Grizzlies for that match. Just see if the team's trending up, continue to trend up, or start to get hit like the peaks and valleys that most teams have throughout the season, and also if the Rockets can right the ship. And again, we will see how that goes over the next month or so. So after this next break, the man, the myth, the legend, Conor McGregor made his return to the octagon over the weekend, and it was a very memorable one. So we will talk about that and talk about what's next for him now after this fight, right after this break.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Podcast Network. So as I said before the break, Conor McGregor's back in the octagon. He's back fighting again. UFC 246 went down this weekend, and I hope you were in your seat for the start of the fight. Let me just put it that way. I hope you didn't go get something to drink. Hope you didn't go get something to eat. Hope you didn't go to the bathroom. Because if you did, you might have missed it. You might have missed it. I mean, Conor finished it up pretty quickly. I mean, he came in off the rip, went for the big left hand. Cerrone ducked it. They got into a hold on each other. Then that's where Conor showed off the new moves. Hit him with the shoulder. Hit him 4 times, broke his nose. So then he was bleeding. Cerrone was bleeding by like 10 seconds in to the fight. Then he hit him. Then after a little bit of back and forth, he hit him with the high kick. That kind of stumbled him. Then he hit him with the left, and then like from there, he started pummeling him. And then like the ref had to call it off. And it was like, and honestly, he could have called it off about 10 seconds before he did, because all that Cerrone did was just stop him from hitting him from the one side, and just then got hit from the other side. It was all bad. But yeah, so he got the TKO in 40 seconds into the first round. So like I said, if you went up to go get a drink, went up to go get something to eat, went to go like make a quick call, went look down and text somebody. There's a good chance you missed it, and if you did, I mean, it's not that hard to find. The whole fight is up on Twitter, as crazy as it sounds, just because it was only 40 seconds. So or Instagram, wherever you could find it very easily on social media if you missed anywhere and want to go see it. But yeah, so like I said, he's back. He's the first guy to get a knockout at, what was it, featherweight, lightweight, and then the welterweight division, which is pretty cool. I know he mentioned that a couple times in his post-game in-ring interview with Joe Rogan, and then obviously in the post-game press conference. That's something he took a lot of pride in. And I mean, that's a really cool thing, just to be able to go up, even as you continue to go up weight classes and continue to fight, in theory, bigger and stronger guys, still able to get those knockouts. So that's cool. But yeah, so he's back. He looks, I mean, in all honesty, he probably could fight like next week if he wanted to. Like, he didn't even get touched. I think Cerrone attempted like one strike and didn't land it. So like literally Conor went through the whole match, didn't even get touched. He was the one doing all the hitting and the kicking and then I don't know what shouldering. I don't think that's the right word for it, but you guys get what I mean. He was the one doing all the striking in the match, and so yeah, he probably feels good. He probably woke up Sunday, wasn't even that sore. Probably going to wake up Monday not even that sore. Well, maybe a little sore from if he celebrated too hard, but that would really be it, because like I said, he didn't even get touched. He's probably, depending on how much training I know he talked about like the last couple of weeks, you can't go as heavy just because you don't want to tire yourself out for the fight, but I imagine if he needed to, he could probably fight again next month. Honestly, he's not going to, but that's how little work he got in this specific match, and that's no disrespect to Cerrone. It was just a circumstance where Conor came in on the attack, and like I said, once the shoulder, I imagine, was not in the game plan, was not something Cerrone was expecting, and once he got hit, and like once his nose was bleeding like 10 seconds in, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't going to last that long. And it didn't. Conor was able to, like I said, finish him off in the 40 seconds. So now you just have to wonder, where does he go from here? And the interesting thing will be, what weight does he decide to fight at? Because it sounds like to him, and I could understand it. I mean, I was never a fighter, like a wrestler or anything, but I was friends with a lot of guys that wrestled. So I heard the stories and in some instances saw them like in the way they have to cut weight. And I know that that's a very hard thing to do, especially when you got to cut a lot of pounds. So right now he fought this fight was at welterweight, which is 170. I believe he's having to cut down to the lightweight division. I mean, that's imagine that's something, if you're a person that wants to walk around at 170, 180 normally to live your life, having to cut down an extra 15 or so pounds, I think, to 155. Like, that's not something I imagine he wants to do. I mean, that's something he will do in order to, whether it's to fight Khabib or Tony Ferguson or whoever. Like, that's obviously he's going to do it if he has to do it. But I could completely understand if he's at like, nah, I want to stay at this welterweight division, just because, like, again, it's easy. I would imagine whatever weight he needs to cut is a lot more reasonable. Now, having to cut 5 to 10 pounds is a lot easier than having to cut 20 to 25 pounds leading up to a fight. So I could completely understand. So then I'm saying, depending on what division he just has to fight at next, will determine who he fights. Because like I said, the Khabib fight is probably one of the ones that makes more sense as opposed to for his next opponent. I mean, him and Tony Ferguson are supposed to fight at UFC 249, I believe. So he might either get the... Well, I guess it depends, because if Ferguson wins, which, I mean, Khabib's undefeated, so not likely. But also, I mean, Ferguson's won. He's on a nice little win streak, so it's not like he's no slouch. It's not like it's going to be. It shouldn't just be a simple fight for Khabib. But I mean, obviously, Khabib's coming in undefeated, so all that stuff. But I mean, that's probably that division. That's probably the big money maker, just because of everything that happened in the last fight and all the controversy and stuff, and then whether or not they decided to put it in Moscow. I know Dana White said he didn't want it in Moscow, but Conor said in his post-fight press conference that he would be cool with going to Moscow. He loves the Russian people. and all that stuff. So that would be that if it was in Moscow, that would definitely add a level of intrigue to it. And again, not that Ferguson wouldn't be a worthy adversary, but just like at the end of the day, the UFC is a business, and Dana White's a businessman. He's not going to do anything that doesn't make sense financially. Like, obviously, good fights are good fights, so you want to set those up. And Conor's going to sell tickets with whoever. It doesn't really matter. He's more or less. I mean, not more or less. He's a star. He's one of him and probably John Jones are the two guys that in the UFC that doesn't matter who they're fighting, people will tune in to watch it, mainly because they don't like them and they want to see them lose. But I mean hate eyeballs of hate are the same as eyeballs of love. So, like I've said, people when people have the character and have the persona that derive such strong opinions on them on both sides, whether it's I absolutely love this guy, love the way he talks, love the way he acts, love the way he fights, or I absolutely hate this guy, I can't stand him, you're gonna watch. So, and like obviously Dana White knows that. I'm not saying anything that he doesn't know. Conor knows that. Like I said, John Jones knows that. So they know that whoever they're going to be paired with the fight's gonna make money. So that's not the big deal. But it's just like, all right, so how do we take that and maximize it? So I'm saying if you're gonna have him go back down in weight, Khabib obviously makes the most sense. Though that one is a little tricky just because of how personal it got, how nasty it got. Obviously, both before and after the fights. That's something that you would have to be mindful of. And I mean, Conor did a good job of leading up to this one. It was a little bit. I mean, Cerrone's not a guy that's like really worth. Not that he's not worth trash talking, but it's like he's a good guy. He's well respected. He's a legend in MMA. So you can't just you bad mouthing him coming back after being out a while and then bad mouthing him the whole lead up would have looked bad for Conor. So he was obviously more humble, and that worked for him in this fight. Obviously, he was able to get the win, so it's not like it affected his ability. But it'll be interesting to see if, depending on who this next matchup is, if that's the same formula he goes with, or he goes back to being the brash, brazen, outspoken kind of guy. So that'll be an interesting aspect, and especially if it's against Khabib, and I imagine Khabib will still feel some type of way about the first, all the lead up and all the actions and antics and all that stuff from their last fight, and he'll probably try to provoke him. Whether it works or doesn't work, we won't know until that happens, but that'll be an interesting one. And then, let me say, is at welterweight, I mean, he has Usman or he has Masvidal, which I think, in my opinion, Masvidal makes more sense to me, just because of the fact that, like I said, this is not that this is his first ever fight at welterweight, but this was his first fight back. So for him to go straight for the title with a guy he doesn't have any history with doesn't make as much sense to me. Probably wouldn't draw as many eyeballs as opposed to like the Masvidal seems like a guy who is trying to replicate the Conor formula to a degree. I mean, he even showed up to the fight with the ringside with the robe that Conor had worn before. So he's playing little mind games with them. So I would imagine that's probably, and Usman's like a new champion, so it's not like he's had the belt for that long. But Masvidal probably, if he stays at the weight, probably makes the most sense money wise, in my own personal opinion. So I think that's like, and then I mean, obviously Mayweather was tweeting out things about like boxing and stuff. I was like, don't fool me one time, shame on me. Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I don't think anybody's falling for the jig again. Honestly, we don't know what may happen, but I'm just like, we also had happened with that first fight. We're not. Like, no, Conor, don't go back to boxing yet. If you want to go back to boxing in a year or so after you've gotten a couple more UFC fights under your belt, by all means, I'm not going to tell the man how to live his life. But no, not right now. No, like I said, he seems happy, he seems content, he seems focused, and that's probably the biggest thing. Just like how focused he was going to be coming into this match, and he seems like a guy that's focused. He seems like a guy that understands some of the errors of his ways from his last situation and wants to rectify those and wants to correct those. He talked a lot about how disappointing his fans, disappointing his family and his team and stuff, just from the way he acted and not focusing as much as he needed to. So he seems like a guy that at least is more determined, more, I guess, focused for a better word, on reaching. I mean, again, he's still a star. He still will always be a star, but just reaching back at the level of success that he had before everything kind of fell apart a little bit for him. So, like I said, some of that is talk. It could be talk. Let me not say it is talk, but it could be talk just because we don't. It's his first fight. We don't know. We don't know what will happen from here, and we don't know how he'll react after winning this fight and like what he goes. But he'll have to show us. And I think from the way he's at least acted so far, he seems to be showing us that he's a guy that's determined to be great in the ring again, or great in the octagon again. And that's all you can really ask for from him. You want to, with the popular guys, with the great guys like that, you just want to see them, especially for guys that's still like he's still in his early 30s, like he's not even that old yet. So he's a guy that like reached a lot of success early in his career, early in his life at a young age, and obviously didn't really handle it the right way. So he's more mature now, in theory, and he wants to be able to get back to that level. And I think we're all ready to see it. I mean, like I said, Conor is a guy who's going to draw eyes, good or bad. People are going to watch. If he's on a card, people are going to be tuned in. People are going to buy it. People are going to want to see it. Like I said, whether it's him knocking somebody out or him getting knocked out, people are going to want to see it. So you just have to find the right guy that makes sense. And I know, like I said, it just depends on what he and Dana decide to talk about and want to do. Because if he's going to stay at welterweight, which I seem like he wants to do, then I think Masvidal's the guy. But if he's willing to go back down, then after the Habib-Tony fight goes down, if it does, then I think he probably takes one of those guys. But long story short, hopefully he doesn't have to sit out that long. Because like I said, he's not really that bruised up. He probably could fight again soon in like March, April maybe. And on Masvidal, he talked before 246, and he said that he wouldn't fight till April. So that's something they could set up. And then maybe have the Habib fight later on down the line in the year. But I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, that was cool just to have him back, and then obviously see him, at least to a degree, still be the team to look like he hasn't missed a beat. And again, it's against an older guy, so we don't know what he would do against one of the other guys. But still, Cerrone's a well-respected guy in MMA. He's fought a lot, so it's not like he was out of shape and just came back for the fight. Like he's been fighting. So, and like I said, anytime you knock a guy out in 40 seconds, I don't care who it is or how you do it, it's impressive to me, at least. So, good for Conor, good for the UFC, and just we'll see where he goes from here. So after this last break, we talked about it a little bit, but we're going to go more in depth on what is next for the Packers. Like, where do they go? Where does Aaron Rodgers go? Where does his team go? And is there aggression in their future? I'll tell you what I think right after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the Packers. Oh man, I imagine I don't want to do this to you. I didn't want to do this to the Packers fans so soon. I imagine this is a rough night, been a rough day for you guys, but we got to talk about it. What's next? What is next? You have a quarterback who is 36 years old. You have a team with very glaring holes, which, I mean, in theory is a good thing, because then you know that there's certain areas you need to attack. and you need to attack hard in free agency in the draft, and so you're able to fix the team. But the biggest issue of them all might be the play of the quarterback. I mean, this is the first year in that. I mean, I don't even. It might be the first year ever. Or not ever, but like since Aaron Rodgers has taken over the starting job, where he hasn't looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And now why that is, I can't 100% tell you. Is it because of his lack of weapons at receiver and tight end? Maybe. But that's the thing that didn't used to matter to Aaron Rodgers. He was a guy that he was known for kind of elevating the talent around him, if you will. Though, I mean, he hadn't been to a Super Bowl in over 10 years, so how good was he at elevating? But normally they hadn't had a defense, and this is the first year where he himself claimed that they had a defense this year. Now, where was that defense when he needed it most? Not present, and that is unfortunate for him and for the team because, as we all saw, they got their boots smoked by the Niners. But yeah, it's just like it's interesting to see and to think and to believe. Is this where Aaron Rodgers starts to take his downturn? Now, we've seen guys like Brady and Breeze be good well into their 30s and their 40s, so we're not going to assume right now that this is where the decline begins, but we saw a guy like Phillip Rivers who just randomly was just throwing picks. I mean, not that he didn't throw picks before, but he was just randomly a lot worse this season than he was last season as an older guy. We saw a Big Ben, who got hurt. Not that that's new, but he obviously got hurt. That's a common thing with older players. We saw Eli get benched. So it's just like some of these older guys in the league are starting to phase themselves out. Whether it's by choice or just by their play or whatever. They're starting to, Brady didn't look that good this year, comparatively to how he normally looks. And again, some of them might be weapons and other things, but, I mean, again, he was a guy that's something that normally didn't matter with him, and now, as he's getting older, that stuff does matter because he's not at the same elite level that he once was at. So, we will see what will happen, but the Packers have many interesting choices to make from their roster perspective because they need to get Devontae Adams somehow. They can't just be trotting him out there week after week as the only real receiving threat outside of their running back, that's not a viable way to run an offense in 2020. I mean, it almost worked for them, but then, as you saw, when you ran up against a team with a good pass defense, one guy is not going to be good enough to beat you. Or to beat them. You know what I mean? But yeah, so they need at least one, if not two receivers. They need to add. Defense, and not to go defense too soon, but they also need another tight end because Jimmy Graham, not the answer. Mercedes Lewis, not the answer. They need help there. They need to get younger there. I mean, they drafted a guy, Sternberger, I believe, and he scored tonight, which is cool for him, but he hasn't really done too much this year. So maybe we'll see. Maybe he could be the guy. But that'd be helpful if he's of use to them next year. And then flipping to the defensive side, they badly need linebacker help. Badly. And the blessing in disguise is that maybe that their two inside linebackers are both free agents this year, Blake Martinez and BJ Goodson. And that might be a blessing just because they can now attack that in the draft. They can attack that in free agency. They should have I think they have about $30 million in cap space, so not nothing. And then obviously they can maybe cut guys like Jimmy Graham or some other cap casualties to help get them even more money. So that'll be helpful. But yeah, so they need to attack linebacker badly because as you saw, their run defense porous. And I mean that's the way the defense set up. Mike Pence, a guy who wants to stop the pass first, which in 2019, 2020 I get because the pass is usually how teams win. Especially nowadays. But as we saw this postseason, stopping the run is almost, if not more important, because it makes as always, making teams one-dimensional is never a bad thing. And you saw that say like the Chiefs, when they were able to stop Derrick Henry, or at least able to get a lead, so they didn't have to go up against Derrick Henry as much, and they forced the Titans to pass. That was easier for them. So if the Niners were forced to pass the ball more, who knows what would have happened? I mean, like I said, Jimmy G threw, and I will be emphasizing this for a while, Jimmy G threw 8 passes. Not in the first half, not in the first quarter. In the entire 4 quarters of an NFL playoff game, not just a regular football game, a playoff game, the NFC Championship game, he threw the ball 8 times because that's how bad the Packers were at stopping the run. So they didn't even have a chance because Jimmy G is capable of making mistakes, whether that's fumbles, interceptions, what have you. He is capable of that, but they didn't even give themselves a chance because they couldn't stop the run, so the Shanahan and now it's just like, all right, screw it. Why are we even going to waste our time passing the ball? So they need to do something about that. I mean, like I said, their defense is not designed to stop the run, but they need to find a way to at least be better at stopping the run, so where they're not going to give up 250 yards again in a postseason game. Because you're not going to beat anybody that way. I'm sorry, unless you're the Chiefs or somebody, and even then, I don't think they would have. Derrick Henry had 250 yards. They weren't winning today, so you can't win games like that. In regular season, maybe, but like even then, it's kind of tough. But definitely on the postseason, you can't win games giving up 250 yards plus on the ground. So, like I said, they need to attack that. And then the biggest thing for them may be that, in many people's eyes, including my own, they probably overachieved this year. I mean, rookie head coach, a team that probably isn't talented enough to go 13-3. I know they had a couple squeakers on the schedule, whether it's the Lions game to end the season, where they easily could have lost and might have lost if it wasn't David Blau starting. They lost. They beat the Lions, I think, by 1 point earlier this season. You look at some other games, they only, in the opening game, they only scored 10 points and won 10-3 against the Bears. Beat the Vikings by single digits the next week, beat Washington by single digits. So, they weren't a dominant 13-3 team. Like, the Niners were a dominant 13-3. The Ravens, dominant. Chiefs, after they got their defense together, dominant. Even the Saints, to a degree, were dominant. Like, the Packers weren't that. They weren't a team that you felt like coming out of every game like, yeah, no, this team's amazing. You're just like, oh, okay. I mean, the Packers won again, so you can't hate. But it's at the same time you're like, okay, well, maybe they're not as good as we think they are. And then also, obviously, as we talked about, the bracket couldn't have broken better for them. After the Saints lost, that means they got to play a beat-up Seattle team who couldn't exploit their weakness because even though that's the strength of their team, with their offensive line beat up and down to Marshawn fresh out of retirement, they weren't capable or prepared to be able to run the ball effectively enough to be able to exploit where the Packers defense where the Packers defense struggled, and then obviously we saw what happens once they played a team that was capable of doing that. So there's a chance had they not. Oh, also just a quick side note, they also got to play the Chiefs with Matt Moore, and they still only won that game by a touchdown. It was in Arrowhead, but they still only won that game by a touchdown. It's another lucky break they had this year. So yeah, so there's a chance that if they were able to get, if they were able to face the Saints, maybe they lose that game, don't even get to the NFC Championship game. So yeah, I was like, this is a scenario where the Packers need to take advantage of their opportunity, because these opportunities don't come, as Aaron Rodgers has found out. He hasn't made a Super Bowl in over 10 years. And then even when he makes the NFC Championship game, I mean, it's not always his fault why they lose, but they usually do tend to lose. And part of that's just because the defense doesn't always show. But I mean, he's been amazing in a lot of these playoff losses. I mean, probably his best performance in a loss, it was probably not the first one, but his second playoff game, the 51-45 game against Arizona. That was probably, that was his best performance. He threw for 423 and 4 touchdowns and 1 pick. I'm trying to remember, this is the game that went to overtime. or not. Oh, no, you know how? No, that's when they had the fumble return for the touchdown. Yeah, they did go to overtime, but that's not the game I was thinking of. The other overtime game I was thinking of was in 2016, where he threw the Hail Mary there at the end. And then Larry Fitzgerald decided that he was going to, like, yeah, you know, it'd be cool if I just, like, was wide open and ran, like, 60 yards down to, like, the 5-yard line and scored a touchdown. But, yeah, so, I mean, if you look at some of his recent losses, the defenses haven't really shown up, but also, specifically in the NFC Championship games, you could argue he hasn't shown up. I mean, today, the defense gave up 27 points, cool, but they also didn't score at all in the first half, and he was a part of that because he threw a pick and fumbled in the first half. I mean, his numbers look all right overall, but he had 2 touchdowns, 2 picks at 300 yards, lost a fumble, had 2 other fumbles that didn't get recovered. So it could have potentially been 5 turnovers. In his last NFC Championship game against Atlanta, he got smoked, 44-21. Again, defense gave 44 points. It is what it is. But he was all right. 287, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Before that, they had the Seattle game, which was the debacle where they blew, what was it, like a 19-3 lead, especially late. I mean, he didn't cause Brandon Bostic to have the onside kick hit him in the face and not recover. Then he's not the one that gave up the long passes for a touchdown to Jermaine. I think it was Jermaine Kearse in overtime. Even that game, he wasn't great. Only threw for 178, 1 pick and 2 touchdowns. So he didn't really do anything that special. And then the one NFC Championship game he won was against the Bears, where he was, again, not great. 244 and 2 picks, no touchdowns. And Jay Cutler got hurt, and he was able to go up against Caleb Haney by the end. And then obviously Caleb Haney wasn't going to get the job done. But that's what I'm saying. He was, like, in his NFC Championship games, he hasn't been that great. On top of the fact the team hasn't played well, he himself has not played that well. So that's why this was a scenario where, again, are the Niners a better team? Yes. But how many more times are you going to get back to the NFC Championship? Like, we just don't know. The NFL is too unpredictable with the teams. Like, look at the Rams last year. No one thought they were going to go from Super Bowl to not making the playoffs. And Jared Goff, like, regressing. Bears, I mean, people didn't have as much faith in Mitch, and rightfully so. But no one thought he was going to be this bad this year, to where, like, starting Chase Daniel was, like, a viable option at one point during the year. And they didn't, like I said, they didn't make the playoffs. Like, there's only been 4 teams that have made the playoffs the last 3 years, and only really 3 if you don't count the Patriots. They just make it every year, mainly because of their division. Sorry, but there's only 3 teams, and those are the Chiefs, Saints, and Eagles, I believe, that have made the playoffs the last 3 years. So that just shows you how hard it is to continually get back to, even just to get back to the playoffs, let alone get back to the championship game of the Super Bowl. I mean, you look at the recent Super Bowl teams. I mean, Rams didn't even make the playoffs this year. Falcons have struggled since they lost in the Super Bowl. Panthers haven't even been close. Broncos haven't even been close. The Niners hadn't made it in like 8 years, and they were bad for most of the stretch after that Super Bowl. Outside, I think the year after they were still good, but after that they kind of, for the last 4 or 5 years they were bad. And I mean, even last year they were like 4-12 at the second pick. No one thought they were going to be this good this year. So it's so unpredictable. The Ravens, since they won, haven't been that great up until this year. And then obviously you saw how that turned out. So it's just like every year you have to capitalize on your chances. You don't know when you're going to get back. Look at the Saints. The Saints have lost on the last play of their season 3 years in a row, when you could argue they might have been the best team in the NFL over that 3-year stretch. Like, there's a legitimate argument for them being the best team in that stretch. And I mean, some of it was their own fault. Some of it was the fault of the refs. Again, still got it to overtime. Drew Brees still threw a pick, even though it might have been hands to the face. So they had that. But they still had a chance to stop the Rams, even after the blown pass interference. And then obviously they lost to the Vikings the 2 years before and after that. So it was not like they didn't have a chance to get the Super Bowl other than last year. And they haven't done it. Drew Brees hasn't been back to a Super Bowl since he hasn't been back to the Super Bowl since he won it. So yeah, I'm saying, I mean, he's been just as good as Aaron Rodgers has been in that stretch, and it just shows you how hard it is to do. if you're not Tom Brady, you're not the Patriots, you're not guaranteed to get back to a Super Bowl, maybe ever. Russ hasn't been back since they lost to the Patriots. And again, he's been a great quarterback in that stretch. Like, it's hard. So when you get there and you get close, you have to capitalize. And the Packers weren't able to do that. So it's just like, how do we know they're going to be back there again? Especially if they get a better piece around him and Aaron Rodgers is able to take his game back up to another level, all right, cool, they might be back. But if they don't, or if he stays on his decline, where obviously it's clear to see the athleticism isn't what it once was, and that's hurting him because his ability to run around and do Mahomes-like things before we knew who Mahomes was going to hurt him because he was able to function outside the structure of the offense, and if he's not able to do that anymore, then that's part of his game that's being taken away. So, the Packers. I said this might have been Aaron Rodgers' last shot, and I still believe it could be, but like I said, the NFL is too unpredictable for me to say outright, like, yeah, now the window's closed, but is it closing? Like, is the door starting to swing, like starting to get, you can barely, like, you can see a little bit of light, but not that much. Yeah, I believe that. The window is very, very close to being shut. Especially with all the good young teams, good young quarterbacks that are going on around the league. Even the NFC, like, you can't assume the Cowboys are going to be this bad next year. You can't assume the Rams are going to be this bad next year. You can't assume that the Niners or the Seahawks are going to fall off. You can't assume the Eagles are going to fall off. You can't assume the Mitch are going to be this bad next year. You can't assume that the Vikings are going to fall off. Like, you don't, like, this, the Cardinals, you can't assume the Cardinals are going to be bad. You can't assume Daniel Jones is going to take, like, there's too many variables. You can't assume the Saints are going to fall off. Like, there's too many variables in the NFL as a whole, but definitely in the NFC. Just assume the Packers are going to be right back where they were at this time next year. So, man, if it's a Packers fan, I understand the dejection tonight, because you think maybe this was Aaron's last shot. And who knows? Who really knows? I mean, Peyton won a Super Bowl late in his career, so you never know for certain, but again, unless you're Tom Brady, these chances aren't guaranteed. So you got to take advantage of them when you get them. So we will see how that goes, what they do to try to improve the team and try to make sure that this is not a one-hit wonder. And make sure that regression doesn't hit them too strong next year. But that'll do it for me here on another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. As always, if you aren't subscribed to the podcast already, please make sure you do so. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of whenever we're dropping stuff. If you can, please give us a 5-star rating and review. It is very helpful. If you're on social media, we are also on social media. So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are. And we could talk. We can talk Super Bowl predictions. We could talk about how the Packers are going to go right back to the Super Bowl next year. We talk about how maybe I was too optimistic on the Pelicans. All that fun stuff. And anything either me or the other hosts on the network have said, you are more than welcome to discuss with us on the social medias. So, as always, I have been Chris Blades. I want to thank you for listening to another episode. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.